All right, so this is a great question from Reddit. He says, mixing kicks and 808s driving me insane. I've spent months trying to master the art of mixing the kick and the 808, and no matter what I do, it sounds like absolute garbage. There are producers such as Sesh Noland that have this real tight but extremely punchy kick and 808 system going that translates. So I'll answer this quickly. It comes down to soft clipping and understanding masking. So let's quickly, I'm pulling random 808s and a random kick because I don't have a hard drive on me. So what I'll do is I'll pull up a random 808 like this one, and then we'll stack it over top of a kick. Now, I have to clarify, not every 808 has a kick stacked over top of it, okay? Well, let's pull up a kick. Let's just do this kick right here. Okay, so firstly, when you're sound designing an 808, there's a punchy part, then there's the body or the boom. Now, usually when you sound design an 808, you create a pitch envelope. So in the beginning, it goes, but really quickly. So it's like, but it's really a pitch dive. That creates the punch in the actual 808. Then you can shape it with compression or shape it with some kind of envelope to create like a dynamic in the actual volume. That's what creates the punch. So sometimes people think there's a kick in the 808, but in reality, it's the 808 pitch dive. So you just got to understand that sometimes it's not a kick stacked. That's the first understanding. The second thing is that how do you blend these two? So let's send these to the mixer, and I'll show you the basic concept. So firstly, you need to understand what's called the fundamental frequency. So if I open up the EQ, for example, this 808 lives around, let's see. Its life really is about 40 hertz, 43 hertz. This is where the 808 kind of lives as far as its core identity. Everything else is a multiplication of that specific frequency. Now let's open up our kick and figure out where the fundamental frequency is for the kick. This is important because at this point, we can determine what needs to be prioritized in each critical band, it's called. So now you see the kick. Let me mute the 808 for a second. Okay, so the kick is living around, let's see. It says 65 hertz for the most part. Okay, so the 808 is living at, what was it, 40 something, 43, 48 hertz, and the kick wants to live at 65. So that's the clashing. What's happening is that when you have two frequencies, and let me show you some science real quick. This is getting a little geeky, but you guys came to this video to have an understanding, so I'll kind of explain it to you real quick. There's something called masking. So the way masking works is that if you have a sound that's playing and then a sound that is kind of like it, but it's playing at a lower volume, that whatever's louder will swallow it up basically. Okay, so let's do this in terms of bass, just to show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so we have that tone going, and then we'll play another tone here. Now, if I just play them at the same volume, they'll just double in amplitude and it just sounds louder. But what I want to do is make the second tone a little bit different. Okay, so let's give it 100 cents of a difference, which is a whole note difference. So now if I send these two to an EQ, okay, route selected from this track. Okay, so now we are going to open up an EQ. So here's the one sound by itself. Okay, it's sitting around, let's say 129 hertz. Okay, then here's the second sound. Sitting around, let's see what this value is. 140. So one is 129, one is 140. Now what happens if we have the 129 sound louder than the 140? I'm going to play both the sounds now. You don't even know that the 140 exists because the 129 is overshadowing it based on its volume and its bandwidth. Okay, so it's swallowing up the other frequency. You can't even tell because it's being masked, it's called. Okay, so that's what happens. Now if I were to change the volume, now you'll start to see the 140 frequency start to take dominance, and now we can't tell that the 129 is even there because it's being masked. So that's the concept of masking. Now applied to mixing, what does that mean? It means your kick and your 808 are going to mask each other when they try to fight for the same frequency space. So what we can do is lean towards what are called critical bands or different areas of the EQ, basically low, middle, high. And in these areas of the EQ, we can start to create a priority per each sound. So instead of the sub from the kick that we don't need, because we're going to have the sub from the 808. Okay. Now let's open up both these sounds. Now you don't need to completely cut off a sound. So I just want to be careful the way I teach this because you don't need to completely wipe out the 808 with the side chain and then bring the volume back. Okay. You just need to tame this area here with the kick. Okay, so you could use something like a low shelf, for example. Doesn't need to be dramatic sidechain, but even cutting out the lows, because our ear can perceive the fundamental frequency, even if the fundamental frequency is not there, because of the math behind it. All the other sounds are harmonics of this fundamental frequency, meaning multiples of the fundamental frequency. Okay, so we don't necessarily need it to be there to perceive bass. So you find that sweet spot where they can both exist without doubling the volume to where you're clipping. And that's how you blend them together. Now, this isn't the last step. Now, also, I'm running through a limiter for the video, so you're getting a lot of that compression sound. So let's also level these. Let's pull them down. Now you have to ask, what needs to take precedence? Do you need to have your kick punchier? You know, what part of the sound do you want to exaggerate? So in this case, I want the 808 to stand out more, the body of it. Say it's a nice balance right here. Now, since they're both flat sounds, you're not really going to need much of this. But if you want to kind of pull them together a little bit, you can use what's called a classic clipper or a soft clipper. There's two different types of clipping. There's hard clipping. Okay, so this is where you can push the sound to where now you're just chopping off transient material at the top. You're going to get more of a square, bitey sound. Okay, so let's play each sound by itself just to remind you like what it sounds like. Here's the kick, and then here's the 808. So the 808 sounds soft because it doesn't have that transient energy. And the kick sounds hard, but it sounds it lacks the boom, mainly because the EQ we did, and also it doesn't have the body or the tail. So when you combine the two, now here's without the classic clipper, it just sounds like two sounds stacked, which is fine. But with the classic clipper, you pull them together to where now they feel like a cohesive item. So let's print this sound out, and then I'll do a different style of clipping called soft clipping. So let's record that. Now you can visually see, I'm glad this happened, because you can visually see where they cancel out. The waves cancel out. Okay, so this is why it's important to take care of those lower frequencies. They tend to have negative wave interference. So right here, you can see where the kick and the 808, they're starting to mask each other right here, and they cancel each other out basically. Okay, so this is not a good thing. So in this case, you can mess with the phase or the alignment of these frequencies so that they're not, you know, a negative value isn't meeting a positive value. Okay, this looks like I can zoom in just a little bit, but I would like to zoom in just a little bit more. I just can't do it on this screen. But the way the phase is lined up for these frequencies is that at that specific point in time, the positive meets a negative and the negative meets a positive. So you can fix that by offsetting the time just a little bit. Okay, now, the way I would normally do this is through a sampler, but because we're using samples in the playlist, you have to manually move it. So what is phase? Phase is when something starts. So you could start the kick right here. And it's really hard to tell if we're lined up with the peaks or not. So you would have to go by ear. That one sounds like we're losing something. Okay, so let me loop this. I'm going to turn it down, but what I'm listening for is how much of the volume is being destroyed. I can hear it goes like this little wobble. And at that specific time point, it's so delayed that it doesn't even sound like it's part of the sound anymore. So another thing you could do is let the kick ride if it has a boomy tail, and then bring in the 808 like this. So now we're preventing that effect from happening as much as we can. Okay, so let's run this back through our soft clipper. Let's record this back in. And before I get rid of this sample, let's actually send it to the playlist so we have it as a reference. We'll mute it for now just to see the difference in the waveforms. Okay, so let's go back to Edison and let's record this new combo. Now I'm going to let this whole thing ride out. Okay. All right, so we're recording on play. Here we go. Now notice this 808 doesn't have that same wave cancellation. That's because we addressed what's called phase. Okay, and phase is basically when a positive meets a negative of two different sounds, they can cancel out if they're at the same frequency. So now at that same exact point in time, it's filled out because we address what's called phase. Okay, the phase cancellation, the negative wave interference. Okay, so now that section that used to be hollow is now filled out. Okay, so this is what sound designers do, so you don't have to do it at home, but I'm just showing you, these are the techniques. Now we can get further and further down the rabbit hole. Let's try now soft clipping. So I'm switching this mode over and by the way, I have a course at premium.busyworksbeats.com. I'll leave a link below. I actually show you how to sound design your own drum kits from scratch, not taking a sample and you could do this and kind of make your own 808, but I show you how to build it in Serum, export it, process it, make actual 808s and kicks from scratch, snares from scratch, hi-hats. I show you how to make a real drum kit from scratch using synthesis. So if you want to go that deep, go to premium.busyworksbeats.com. It's a sound design course. Okay. So let's say we want to process this through soft clipping. Let's record this on play. So now it's going through a soft clipper, not a hard clipper. And actually, before we record it, let's make sure we're not taking out too much dB. Okay. Now with soft clipping, it tends to address more of the sound. So it basically it interacts a little bit more than the hard clipper. Okay, so let's record this. All right, so we have this sound, boom. Let's send that to the playlist, and let's just see the visual difference between the hard clipping and soft clipping. Now, it's from just rough eyeballing, you can't really tell the difference. The only difference would be in the beginning. If you look at that transient material in the beginning, it's just a little more rounded than this. Again, it's a little hard for y'all to see. But basically, this first wave here is squared off. You can see a horizontal line, whereas the second wave here has a more circular line, a more sine wave based line. So you're going to have that lower harmonic activity. And if you have a harder line, then you're going to have more upper harmonic activity. Okay, so that's the main difference. Let's mute the original. And that's how you get those really big 808s. Okay, so this is without any side chaining. We didn't even get into side chaining and all this. Okay, this is simply just clipping. Now, let's do one more thing. And actually, I think we should end the video here because that was pretty good examples. I'm actually glad that wave interference happened because now you understand phase, hopefully. But if you want me to go deeper and you want a part 2, let me know. I'm just going to keep this video short. We already went probably 20 minutes. Please like the video. And if you want to learn more, go to premium.busyworksbeats.com. Peace.